ask if you can come forward and fill these seats in first, please. That way, as people come in later, they can fill in the back. Thank you. Unless you always sit in the back, and then you're welcome to. You can all join palms and repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. With the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good to see you all here. Thanks for being here. Anyone here for the first time? What brings you here?
We lived down the street, and we just met. She just moved in and was more confident having a partner to come in. Yeah, same.
Right on. And are you afraid and intimidated yet, or are you all right?
Love meditation.
Okay, cool. All right. Making sure. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
We're here for the first time, and mainly curiosity, looking for a spiritual practice, and have always been interested in meditation.
Nice.
So very glad to be here.
Good. Welcome.
I used to go to the Buddhist temple in Hacienda.
Yeah, Shilai.
And I love it there. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
Gentleman over here was telling me about this, so I decided to come.
Nice. At Shilai Temple?
I believe that's what it's called.
Yeah, that was my whole.
Well, in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah. They ingrained that in your head pretty well, didn't they?
Well, I heard about it from a friend, and then that's why I went and checked it out, and then I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
I lived over there. I used to go all the time.
It's funny you brought that up, because what I pondered as I was, so whenever I sit down here, whatever I start talking about, or even throughout the day, it's just whatever pops into my head. And as I was doing my offering, what triggered in my head was to give a talk pretty quickly before we start meditation. I'm also just like wasting time until people maybe show up before we start, and before the meditation. So what went through my head was this piece of Buddhist practice that is so incredibly important that gets drastically overlooked in Western culture with Buddhism. And it's called discipline. And it is something that Western folks with Buddhism, like, for the most part, this is a very broad generalization, so no offense to anyone who's potentially offended, but it gets overlooked completely. And the funny thing is, discipline is actually what we need in our lives the most. And if you're just coming in, if you can grab a seat this way, thank you. It's a discipline to committing yourself to some sort of spiritual practice. Not discipline to a temple or to a organization or towards a religion, but discipline within yourself. Mental, emotional discipline is so critical and so important. And you know where I learned this through Buddhist practice 19 years ago? At that temple. That temple was their home, their largest temple in the Western Hemisphere, as you read on their pamphlets everywhere, is Shilai Temple in Hacienda Heights. Their local San Diego branch is Shifang Temple, which is about, I could hit a golf ball there. Actually, it wouldn't be straight, so I wouldn't hit it, but it's right down the street. And then their home is the monastery in Taiwan, where I was at for 11 months. And what you learn in Buddhist practice, first and foremost, with these types of very deeply ingrained cultural, religious Buddhist practices, it's not about like meditation. It's not about like, what did the Buddha say to make you feel good? It's not about what Thich Nhat Hanh quote can we throw up on Instagram, right? It's not all that feel-good stuff, because all that feel-good stuff is what we spend our entire lives seeking and craving, is to like, oh, what's going to make me feel better? Now, I get it. I'm sure those of you here for the first time, you didn't come here to feel worse, right? You didn't say like, hey, let's go to meditation so we can feel crappy. I'm sure that didn't come up, right? And so if you are brand new to practice, this is actually, I think, one of the greatest lessons we can learn early on in our spiritual journey is discipline is critical. Being committed to yourself on this journey is critical. In those temples and in that tradition, right, which is most of Buddhist practice outside of the United States, is an incredible amount of structure, discipline, and diligence towards everything. Like the way you walk, the way you sit down, the way you put shoes in a shoe rack, where you sit, how you sit, an awareness of your mask, whether it's above your nose and mouth or just down on your chin, right? All these little things, which seem to have nothing to do with Buddhism. But for those who think that that has nothing to do with Buddhism, then you're missing what Buddhism is about. Buddhism is not about anything outside of you. It is about you. And your ability to be mindful and aware of every single thing that you do, and how every single thing that you do has an impact on everybody around you. Everybody. And you know how I learned this at that temple? What do you think? Take a guess. What's your name?
Dustin.
Dustin?
Yeah.
How do you think I learned that at that temple?
By not paying attention to others.
No.
No?
By cleaning toilets. Not from meditation, not from like hours of sutra study, by cleaning toilets. Because who uses those toilets? Everyone. And if they're not clean, who has to sit on dirty toilets? Everyone. Right? So when you come into Buddhism, I'm sure you came here thinking like, I hope I get the Dharma talk on cleaning toilets today, right? That was high on the list. But it's so important that we start to pay attention to all these little things that seemingly have nothing to do with Buddhism, but actually are what the heart of Buddhism is about. Is a mindful, attentive awareness to how your actions impact others. And the last thing I'll say before we sit is also most people don't come to meditation and Buddhist practice with this idea that I'm here to make life better for other people. Most people early on come here with the idea of what? Ourselves. I'm struggling, I'm stressed, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, whatever it might be. So I want to be happy. I want to feel better. So we show up at places like this, whether it's, meditation, yoga, spiritual journeys, whatever it is, because we want to feel better. And there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the beauty of feeling better. When you feel better, how does that influence people around you? Right? You two came together, like together? You ever in a bad mood?
Sure.
When you're in a bad mood, how does she feel about that?
It transmits to her.
Are you ever in a bad mood?
Yes.
And when you're in a bad mood, how does he feel about that?
Transmits to him.
See? And the same thing goes for being in good moods. So this practice is really just a mirror to reflect immediately on how our mental emotional states translate to those we know and love and to those who are complete strangers, right? And that was the message I got from cleaning toilets, was that people I don't know, I have no idea who they are, I don't know where they come from, I don't know what they believe in, but they're going to use this. And if I make sure it's clean, then I'm making life more comfortable for them. That's what was taught to me. And so that's been one of many things I learned from that place, the driving force behind this practice. Other than, yes, the obvious, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, the nuns and monks are so pleasant, sweet, and beautiful, and all they do is sing a song, and you're just like, you're in the Pure Land, you know? You feel like you're in heaven. So, yeah, well, welcome to the Dharma Dome Temple. So with that, we'll sit, we'll do a meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you, right? You're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Am I doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit, we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. This practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps sliding to the front third, pushing the stomach forward. Same thing if you're on a chair or a bench, stomach slides forward, shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable for you. If you need to move during meditation, simply move. If your leg hurts, simply stretch your leg out. It doesn't make you a bad meditator. It just means your leg hurts. Most important, do not expect anything. You will not shut off your mind will not stop racing, and you will not think nothing. We're not trying to go blank. It can't happen. You're just going to sit and breathe. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention and focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments of the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Keeping the mind alert. Aware of each sound. Each thought. Each physical sensation. yet concerned with nothing, but sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, simply sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. And the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. No one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment has nothing to do with anything I said, has nothing to do with how we sit, hold the hands, or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us, or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awaken. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens. More reactions. That's it. That's what we get every single day of our lives. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that happens throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful. Whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, and focused. Distracted by nothing. And disturbed by no one. This practice is not necessarily fun. Not necessarily easy. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It's direct perception into the present moment. And very often, the present moment of our lives is incredibly difficult and challenging. And as I was alluding to earlier at the beginning with the discipline, is very often what we tend to do is find moments in our lives that are causing conflict mentally, emotionally. We find difficulties in our lives. And we seek and crave and desire something to take away that mental, emotional conflict. And this practice is about facing it and looking at it very deeply, very honestly, very intimately. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, and getting to know everything you think, everything you say, and everything you do. Ultimately, this practice is putting into your lives everything somebody probably taught you when you were 5 years old. We've just maybe not done it so well. And so all you have to do is, when you leave here today, we'll give you the rest of this morning to be mean to people, but when you leave here today, just go out and be nice to every single person you encounter, every moment of the rest of your life. Be kind, respectful, loving, forgiving, understanding. That's it. We can all do that, right? Piece of cake. Look at all the years I just saved you. So many books you don't have to read anymore. So many classes you don't have to go to anymore. I mean, you could have just stayed home and watched cartoons. But unfortunately, most of us struggle with everything I just said the last 60 seconds. So that's why this is a practice. It is a practice of recognizing our own levels of greed, anger, ignorance. Waking up to our own stresses, anxieties, sadness, angers, depressions. And facing them. And getting through them. And for me, that's why that temple literally saved my life. After 2 weeks of the temple here, my master there, the nun, she said, "Hey, Jeff, do you want to go take refuge up at Shilai Temple?" I was like, "Yeah." And then 5 seconds later, I thought to myself, what is refuge and what is Shilai Temple? But I went anyways, and, I've been stuck ever since. But what this practice, and specifically that place, which is why I, forever have so much love in my heart for that lineage and that practice, is it's funny. I saw somebody gave a talk. This was years ago, but I only saw this like 6 months ago. And it was a guy talking about his teacher. And to kind of sum it up, he described that his teacher was like, if you have a cat, the cat's sitting on your lap and you're like petting the cat and the cat's like purring and everything is wonderful and happy. That's what most people look for when they try to find spiritual practices. They want that person or place or thing to pet them like a cat to make them feel good. He said his teacher did it the other way. Cat didn't like it. So think about that as you go through your journeys, no matter where it is. I mean, for me, as I say at the end anyways, we're not teachers or gurus or monks or masters. We don't take students. We're not looking for anyone. But keep that concept in mind, that if we're seeking and craving and desiring that perfect person, place, or thing to always make us feel good, we're missing the heart of Buddhist teachings, which is to look at the cause. This is the second noble truth of your own suffering. Not looking for someone to take it away from you, but look at your cause. And the Buddha said this is greed, anger, ignorance. So explore in your life where you're greedy, where you're angry, and where you're ignorant. That's why for me, I always focus on that. That's the practice. If you want to suffer less, have kinder, gentler, happier days, you must explore why you're struggling. So meditation doesn't fix things. It just helps you become aware of what's going on in your head. And that's the fun part. Because I know how much we love just sitting by ourselves with our own thoughts all day long. That's so pleasant. Right? So I'll pause and really prefer always just to respond to your questions, meditation, Buddhist practice. And I'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for that. To our millions of YouTube fans, sorry I didn't say hello this morning. But good morning, welcome. Feel free to, there's a chat box somewhere on your screen. Feel free to say hello, introduce yourselves, or ask any questions. I can respond to them as well. So, thoughts, questions? Yeah.
During my meditation, I was getting frustrated because I've been disciplined for 2 months with my meditation.
2 months and it hasn't worked yet?
Right, yeah, right. So, I mean, I was laughing at that, but then I'm glad you mentioned the cat because in my meditation, my mind is like a feral cat, and especially at night, it just goes so many places to get into trouble, and I'm trying to rein it in. I'm trying to make a feral cat domesticated. Can you speak to how you deal with that?
How's that working?
It's not.
It's not. Yeah. So a couple things on that. And, one, yes, and I could hear in the kind of the laughter and the humor in your voice, hopefully the frustration, but hopefully understanding, as I've said before, right? Now that you're probably, 37, 38 years old, right? You've been dealing with all the stress and trauma and anger and whatever you've got in your life for a while. 2 months of meditation is not going to heal that. Right? This is not just for you, but for everyone. To understand that if we've been angry for 40 years, it's going to take more than 2 months to begin to cut through that anger, whatever that emotion is. Anger, stress, anxiety, sadness, depression, whatever emotion is strong in you that you resonate with or connect with or feel the most. We've been cultivating that in an unhealthy way for a long time. So this is just a reminder, 2 months. Congratulations on the 2 months. Congratulations on the discipline and diligence for 2 months. Now just keep doing this every single day for the rest of your life without any expectation of anything happening or gaining from it. Abandon this concept and idea that you're supposed to get or gain something from your meditation practice. Can you do that?
I'll work on it.
So is that a nice way of saying no, you can't? Can you do that right now?
Right in the moment.
What I'm saying is, are you able to surrender this idea that you're going to get something from meditation right now.
I'm not feeling that.
You're not feeling that in the moment. That's what I wanted to hear, right? But you said you'll work on it. Beautiful. Keep practicing that. The challenge, and I'll get to the rest of your question in a minute, but I really want to start here because this is the heart of it, of your question. What I'm hearing is that you, like many of us, we want things now. Meditation, Buddhist practice is against the stream of everything we have been raised to think and believe and do. It is not a phone that instantly can pull something up for us. We want this immediate instant gratification, this constant, I want to feel better now, I want to be fixed now, I want to be healed now, I have a headache, I want to pop 2 Advil, and I want my headache gone in 2 hours. Our entire lives have been seeking that instantly. Meditation is going to take a while. Now, I don't want to sound like such a downer. You will see and feel benefits from the meditation practice here and there, right? Just don't attach to that. Just keep practicing each day to practice, right? The second part, the racing mind, the monkey mind, your mind's always going to race. Always, right? I mean, I've been doing this practice over 20 years, every day for 19 years. And my mind races like crazy. I had a million thoughts just like you did, right? The problem is not the racing mind. The problem is what we do with the racing mind and our ability or inability to discipline ourselves to come back to the present moment. Anyone been angry about something for like 5 years? 10 years, 20 years, right? We can keep going. How long? Kara, how long have you been angry about that same thing? Sorry to pick on you. I'm trying to be quiet over there in the corner. How long have you been angry about something for?
We'll go plus 40.
Plus 40 years.
There we go.
That's a long time. And the thing that you're angry about that happened over 40 years ago, just to clarify, when did it happen? I don't need the date.
Oh, yeah, a long time.
Over 40 years ago. And here we are 40 plus years later, still feeling that anger.
Only if you make me think about it.
Only if I make you think about it. Yes, thank you. This is what I'm trying to do. Not trying to make you angry, not trying to make you think about it, but give rise to the idea that when we think about something that happened a long time ago that made us angry, we carry that feeling and emotion with us over and over and over again. And disciplining the mind to stay present, that's why we do meditation practice. Anger, sadness, depressions in the past, stress, anxiety, fear, worries in the future. When we sit in or out of meditation, our mind is constantly racing and wandering. And when it goes to the past, I mean, we've also had good things happen to us in the past. Any of you had at least one good thing happen in the past? Do you ever spend any moments thinking about those things? Good, thank you. Think about those things more often. It's the same mind's ability or inability. If it's going to travel back, think about wonderful experiences you've had. Give yourselves a break. The stress, the fear, anxiety, the worry, there's so much about that looking forward into the future. We have no idea what's going to happen in the future. Things could get completely worse in the future. You know what else could happen? They could actually get better. Things that you're so afraid of and you think are just going to absolutely fail and be miserable might get better than what you were anticipating. It is possible. So, learning to stay present is important. Not just in meditation, but in our lives. When we're walking around, something triggers us, right? We have the opportunity to be angry in that moment and carry that anger throughout the whole day, or a whole month, or a whole 40 years, or the opportunity to recognize what occurred, understand the emotions in that, see the Buddhist teachings of impermanence, which is everything changes, and move on.
I just want to add that since I've been coming here, that I feel I am paying more attention in the moment, and I notice a kinder, more gentler self. So
yeah, it's great.
I experience that when I was alone.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, to experience a kinder, gentler self is important. And that kinder, gentler self has always been there. You maybe just never paid attention to it before because you were too busy focused on all the crap. You know? Believe me, I can relate to that. Yeah. Yeah, and then normal. Go ahead, Gary. Yeah.
After a few years of coming here and the breathing, I find it's very helpful in the meditation to come back when you remind us to come back to the breath, right? Because the mind.
Yeah.
But I can go breathe in, breathe out. And today I realized my breath also goes into my back muscles. So, just keep coming back. Right?
Yeah. It's just, you just keep practicing.
Right.
It's not a kind of following up also on the, the 2-month comment. We're so conditioned to go through things in our lives as it's like a 6-month course, or, we finish a 2nd grade and we move on to 3rd grade and we finish this degree and what's the next one. We're so conditioned to like everything in stages or levels. And this isn't it. This is present moment. So it's a lifelong practice. It's not a 6-week course that all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool. I'm good. I'm done. The funny thing is, I don't know if it's funny or sad, but after 15 years of running this place, we see so many people through here, and we usually see them very often when things are challenging in their lives, and then all of a sudden they're on like a good streak. They're like they're sitting at the roulette wheel and they're just winning constantly, and then you don't see them anymore, and then that things are going to crash at some point in time, and then they're like, oh, my life's a mess again. Your life is going to be a constant up and down. And I've always described this practice as, a roller coaster ride is our life. Lots of really big highs that we love and lots of really lows that we don't like. And for me, Buddhist practice is like the kiddie ride at Disneyland. Last I checked, nobody gets hurt. It's not that fun. It's not that exciting. But you go through it pretty pain-free. And at this stage of our lives, I find, and this is also a very broad generalization, but at this stage of our lives, I feel that most people are ready to just kind of have a peaceful kiddie ride. So, normal.
I'm trying to understand diligence and in the monastery, etc., very strict discipline. How does that square with the compassion for self or others?
Yeah. So the discipline, good question. The question was trying to understand the discipline, monastery discipline, and how does that compare and relate to compassion towards self? So ultimately, if you look at the heart of Buddhist teachings, he talks about there is no self. So we all, those of us who lead Buddhist stuff, we all get up here and we tell you stuff to help you explore the nature of your own mind. And, little secret, even though I made it sound like I didn't really, want to make you all feel good. Of course, we want you to feel better throughout your day. Those of us who do this stuff, we do it because we know suffering very deeply and it hurts. And we don't want to see others suffer. And when you look really what the Buddha taught about non-self, one of many reasons that we lack compassion for ourselves is because we're stuck in pride, ego, judgment, stories, critiques about ourselves. You ever done any of that? All of that? Check every box, right? Now, ultimately, looking at Buddhist teachings on non-self, if there is no self, there's no one to judge, there's no one to critique, there's no one to think is a failure. All that goes away. When all of that goes away, that gives you the ability to stop thinking about you. And then compassion just consumes you. Because that's all there is. And then that compassion gets shared.
It's directed outward.
It's outward. It is the bodhisattva practice of giving. The cleaning the toilet is giving. And it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about self. It's about overcoming that attachment to self. The ego, the pride, the story we tell ourselves, I'm this person, and this is why I'm important, and this is what I need, and this is why I matter, and this is my whole life's drama, and this is my story, and this is what's wrong with me. And let me spend the whole life creating you my picture and my story, and then I'm going to stick to it, and I'm never going to change it. But I want meditation to fix me in 2 months. 3. All right, we'll give you one more. Right? So coming back to the question of how does the discipline lead to compassion, it cuts through the sense of self and ego and pride that is causing us to have lack of compassion. And then you're left with what's called bodhicitta, Buddha nature, which is just pure love and compassion. And then it's not about you anymore. All right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, in terms of letting go of the ego and dismantling the ego, what often comes up is this sense, for instance, if somebody dismisses what I'm saying, there's a sense of like, no, wanting to set the record right, or like, just feeling dismissed, I guess. What suggestions do you have for this?
What was the last part you said? What's the...
Yeah, just how does one dismantle the ego?
No, I heard that part. The last sentence, there was a card. The last sentence was, what's the best...
Yeah, just what suggestions do you
Oh,
have
suggestions.
for dealing with, like, dismantling the ego enough for it to not bother you when you're dismissed?
But still wanted to be heard. Yeah. No, good question. And I want to, like, in Buddhist practice, there's ultimate reality and conventional reality. Okay? I'll get to this question, but I want to give a little bit of background to it, especially for those who might be new to Buddhist practice. The very core teachings, the very first thing the Buddha taught, and that image above the exit sign there is a picture of, I won't tell the whole life story of the Buddha now, but 500 years before Christ, he was born. He was a prince, 29 years old. He left home. He rode on the base of the Himalayan mountains for 6 years. At 35 years old, he figured some stuff out. They thought he was really smart, and they called him the Buddha, which means awakened one. He taught for 45 years, and at 80, he died. And the first thing he realized is, and what he taught was the Four Noble Truths. And this is tied to your question. And he said, life is filled with suffering. That's the first one. Doesn't mean all life sucks. It just means you're going to suffer a lot through our lives. Most people know that. The second one is the cause, as I already mentioned, the greed, the anger, the ignorance. He said, if you want to overcome greed, anger, ignorance, practice generosity, compassion, and wisdom. The third noble truth, he said, is there's an ending to suffering, nirvana, liberation, freedom from suffering. And the fourth noble truth is the path. That's the Eightfold Path. And he said to have correct views, thoughts, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. All of that, I rambled pretty quickly. It's on Google for free. Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path. Stay on the first 3 Google pages and you'll be totally fine. You get into like page 6 on Google, you got problems. But here's the thing, back to your question. With conventional reality, ultimate reality. The beautiful teaching of the Heart Sutra, Mahayana Buddhism, it's the condensed version of what's called the Diamond Sutra. It comes from the Prajnaparamita, the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. The Heart Sutra says, there is no suffering, there is no cause of suffering, there is no cessation of suffering, and there is no path. There is no wisdom or any attainment. With nothing to attain, bodhisattvas relying on Prajnaparamita, perfection of wisdom, attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, meaning supreme ultimate enlightenment. This teaching right there directly applies to your question around feeling like we're being dismissed. Conventional reality, ultimate reality. Ultimate reality says there is no one to dismiss. Because that person that is being dismissed, and hang on before y'all think I'm hating on anybody, give me a second. That person that is being dismissed is just this illusion of yourself that thinks your ideas should be heard. Ultimate reality says that's just your ego. That's just you attached to your story and what you think is important. And somebody else doesn't want to hear it, and they don't care, and they're dismissing you, so you feel crushed. You feel belittled. You feel just displaced, right? Ultimate reality says there's no self to feel that way. But conventional reality, and this gets into why engaged Buddhism and fighting for social justice and human rights is so critically important. We are not enlightened bodhisattvas and Buddhas running around. We are, no offense to anybody, ignorant, angry fools who are wrapped up in our pride and our ego 95% of our day. Right? And when we are like that, And as we go through our day, we are constantly going to be met with people who dismiss us, don't hear us, put us down, don't respect us, right? Now, for me, as I talk about all the time, for someone who has every privilege in the book, white, male, straight, able-bodied, Jewish, so I'm the chosen one, I got them all, right? I never had to deal with that. Nobody dismisses all those categories. It's every other category that gets oppressed and dismissed. And when you find yourselves in those situations, right? Say in the workplace as a female and the men are just completely dismissing you because you're not one of them. You speak up. But here's my advice, my suggestion is do it coming from a place of love and compassion, not hatred and anger. Do it from a place of knowing that it might not change anything in the person that you're saying it to, but that you're speaking up because it's the right thing to do. So for me, that's really the challenge is, can you go about your day and engage in this dynamic where you feel as if you're not being heard and continue to speak and never shut up, but let go of the expectation or attachment that the other person's ever going to listen? Because they're probably not. So the problem isn't the speaking up. Well, I shouldn't say that. My point is, the issue is not around speaking up. The issue is around the fact that other people aren't hearing you and they don't care.
So why speak up?
Because you have to. Yeah. Silence will destroy you. Yeah, there's a,
Because somebody else is watching.
what's that?
Because somebody else is
Because somebody else is
like
watching.
you, and it's a model and it's the initiation of movement.
Yeah. I think it's, we're too late in the morning here. I'm going to wrap up to kind of open up this can of worms. We can table it for next time. But to answer your question of why speak up, you don't have to speak up. So I also don't want to sit here and make it sound like, I mean, I know the nature of your question, where you're coming from, because you've been asking the same question for 5 years, just in 5,000 different ways, right? And you haven't settled on a way that is working for you, right? So for some individuals, you speak up because you feel like you have to. If other individuals don't want to speak up, that is every individual's choice to speak up or not speak up. So I don't want to sit up here and say you have to speak up. That's not the proper response. Speak up if you want to. Don't speak up if you don't want to. But the practice is to not expect or attach to the outcome or result of either your silence or your speaking up. Because if we attach to that outcome, then it's only going to bring us more anger, more frustration, more disappointment. And then we're just going to continuously be driven by more anger, more frustration, and more disappointment. And that's rough. Not an easy one. But yeah, hope I summed that up for you. So I'm going to close on that. There's a question here, Jen. I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap up. But did the Buddha or his followers write down his teachings, or were they passed on verbally? How do we know that the present teachings weren't changed in translation? Real quickly on that, they absolutely were changed in translation. The Buddhist teachings are one big game of telephone, right? I always laugh when I go to scratch my nose and my thumb hits the shield. Let me just respond to that very quickly, because it's a simple answer. Everything when the Buddha taught was memorized. It was an oral transmission for 50 to 100 years, somewhere around there. I'm not a scholar, and there's debate on that anyways. But it wasn't until years after the Buddha died, maybe 50 years later or something, where they came together and they said, hey, this is some good stuff. We should probably write this down. And so that's where the sutras were memorized. And majority of the sutras start with, thus have I heard at such and such place at such and such time, the Buddha once said. So they're all the retelling of what they memorized that the Buddha said. And then it travels all over the world for 2,500 years. So none of this is a direct translation of the Buddhist teachings. Nothing. And the Buddha was just a dude, not a god, didn't want you to praise him, didn't want you to believe in him, just wanted you to be kind to people. So I used to always say it doesn't matter if the Buddha said it or if Donald Duck said it. If it's kind and it's wise and it helps you feel a little bit more pleasant throughout your day, then, you know, Buddha, Jesus, Donald Duck, whoever it was that said good stuff, do it. Don't harm self, don't harm others. So we'll close on that. We'll join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to the more than 6 million lives that have been lost during this pandemic, and to the family and friends who continue to suffer at this time. To all of those in Ukraine and surrounding areas that have lost lives and continue to suffer, and to those who lost lives in Texas, the children and the parents, and all who suffer at this time. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. Oh, there's a comment here. Shiva, there's a comment here that says, I just dismissed the woman who was complaining about being dismissed. Did I dismiss you?
No, I don't think so. I think, yeah, we can chat more about the context in which I was asking the question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. No, I'm always like, hey, I'm just some unenlightened dude doing my best. So, you know, my apologies. You know, I've known you for years. So if you think that I dismissed you, then by all means, my apologies. Please let me know. Yeah. Yeah. So, but I appreciate the comments, whoever that's from. I can't really see the name. So, all right. So I'm going to close on that note. Thank you all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 15 years ago to be a bridge to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, clearly, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our unenlightened view of Buddhist teachings and share it with those who show up. So every night we have different practices going on, different unenlightened folks leading a different Buddhist tradition. Every first Saturday of the month, so it was this morning, we have a day of silence. So you have a whole month to work up to that if you ever want to do it. If 20 minutes of silence is absolute torture, then you can try it for 4 hours. It's phenomenal. So that's the first Saturday of the month. We have a family sangha that meets once a month over the summer, twice a month in the fall. Recovery sangha. So anybody battling addiction, drugs, alcohol, life, whatnot, we have 4 or 5 classes a week with that as well. So there is a garden crew that'll stick around, I'm guessing, since I see a couple of you. If you want to help garden outside, water, rake some leaves, there is a list by the door. If anybody wants to help take care of the space, the temple that we use, feel free, whether it's 5 minutes or 30 minutes or not, that's up to you. But we just appreciate you being here. Buddha for You is there. It's downstairs if you need anything. So appreciate the really beautiful, deep, heartfelt questions. It's what I love most about this Sangha and this community is really all of us challenging each other to explore how to be kinder, gentler people. So thank you. Wish you well.